Hello, this is the Nearly Enlightened podcast. I am Gianna Giarrusso, and today I am finally joined by the wonderful Jayme Rose Gray. Jayme is a soul purpose guide and business coach here to help conscious entrepreneurs, mamas, and mystics help make the planet a brighter place for the next generation to come. We have so much to talk about, Jayme. I am so glad you are here. Let's do it.
I feel like 2 years and 2 months later, we
I
are
know.
finally making this happen. But it
Well,
feels right.
you're like the reason that the podcast did happen in the first place.
Thank you. Yes.
You're
Fuck
one
yeah.
of the people who have helped and still are helping Nearly Enlightened kind of evolve into whatever it's going to be. I'm still figuring that out as I go.
It's great. This is the year. This is the time. The time is now.
I know the energy of this month has been really intense. So Jayme is the creator of the Tracking North Co. and the Soul Purpose Collective, which are global movements and mentorships that are designing the energetic architecture of the new world. And I love this because you have really talked about things since I've known you, which has been like 7 years now, 8 years, um, about kind of the things that people don't want to talk about, but you believe like I believe. I feel like these things, these uncomfortable things that keep happening in the world are here to ignite people, to wake people up. Like they're all happening for a reason, even though it's not really pleasant.
Amen. There's like literally the next section of my bio says that, I think.
Yeah, that's where I read it from.
Right? Like this polycrisis that we're in, I like that word. I've been using that word lately. There's so much going on, and it's like fireworks. And we need it, right? These are time capsule moments that we're experiencing together collectively that will ignite people on different paths, different depths, different situations. We all aren't behind the same one. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers to this, but it's almost like fireworks are going off right now.
So people who are like totally new to this kind of lingo, like let's start from the beginning. Like what is a soul purpose?
This is such a great question, and I definitely just wrote a book about it. Because there's so much to it here. But let's go mini, like what micro coming in. Here's a few things I'd like to share about soul purpose. One, I think that we have things that are just aligned lessons. I like to call them earth classrooms. Our souls are here to experience, regardless of work and purpose and passion. Okay. So your soul is here to learn and evolve. And right now it's 2024 and shit is popping off. But if you can imagine, so many psychics and mediums and intuitives around the world can sense and feel that souls are lining up and signing up to come down here. This is a magnificent, beautiful place. And our souls get to experience a lot here. So we sign up, we collectively and individually sign up to come here,
I
which
love
sounds
this.
crazy.
I know, but I love this because, like, yes, this is what I was kind of talking about in the episode before this, because just because we're on the spiritual path doesn't mean that it's all rainbows and sunshine and nothing bad's ever going to happen to us. Like, we live on this planet Earth, like, we are spirits having a human experience. And sometimes when you get on the spiritual journey, you live too much in the spirit and you're forgetting that you're like having this human experience. And that is powerful shit. And like, it's intense.
And I think, unfortunately, I mean, I'll go back to my point in a minute, but unfortunately, I think people try to use the psycho spiritual aspects to get out and away from the human experience, the depths and the emotions and the feelings, right, that we're experiencing. And we use that to like disengage, to disassociate. So what I think what we're waking up to right now is like, for people that are on a energetic or spiritual path, whatever we're calling it these days, it's like, if it's not rooted, you will be having an interesting few years. If your spirituality, if your religion, whatever, right, isn't rooted in the earth, base and realm, right? Physics explains we're only going to be able to ascend as much as we can descend. We're
Yeah.
only be able to align and raise and rise as much as we are anchored.
Yes, that's like, so I went through like 500 hours of booty yoga teacher training. And that is one of the things that Busy Gold says all the time is like, you can only be as spiritual as you are grounded. So if like you're only hanging out up in the ethers, like,
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
we've all, we've all met those kind of people who are like so far out there. It's like, oh my God, do you even exist on planet Earth? Like, come down here.
And, I'll say, like, if to anyone who's trying to wrap your head around that, am I doing that? It's like, well, let's say, let's give an example of what that looks like for everyone on the planet right now. If you're on your phone all day, you're checking out. You're disassociate. It's an easy release from the feelings and sensations in your body.
Yeah,
The
getting those quick dopamine hits.
bunch of hits, right? And good sensations and like getting involved but it's like it's a checkout. Don't get me wrong, I do it too. You do it too, like we do it.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
Like, but like that's just a quick example of like, we're all kind of doing this somewhere.
Or
Somewhere.
even, yeah, even taking it too seriously. Like I've been there.
Okay, so now let's go back to the question.
Yeah.
LOL. This is the whole time. But so like back to
Sole
the
purpose.
I think for some people, like, let's just say, like, I call them Earth classrooms, and it's like, what Earth classrooms have you been thrust into this lifetime, have entered? Like, divorce, that's a soul classroom, sister friend, right? Like, going through that, loss of a parent, that's like an Earth classroom. So, a lot of us that have had to experience these things
Which
for our
all of us like no, like spoiler alert, none of us are getting away scar free.
right, and doesn't matter on your timeline, there has been something there,
Right.
right? So that to me is there's a whole section in my book about that, and you can like it's a free ebook right now, so everyone can have it if you're hearing this. But there's a whole section where I explain that, like Earth classrooms, right? So like we all have different life experiences, and absolutely we're meant to learn and grow from these. That's the quickest, simplest explanation. But then now there's the work I do. I consider, soul purpose and your earth mission is what your soul came here to build, create, make, do, provide, serve, and be. And that again is an entire box of worms, baby. Oh my God. What
Yeah.
can that look like? That can look like, leaving your corporate job and going and getting that coaching certification and coaching 200 women a year. Fuck yeah, cool. That can look like leaving your law firm and going and opening up a muffin shop down the road. Hell yeah. And there's no difference between those two things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it can look like a lot of different things, and it really excites me, as you can tell. And I'm just so passionate about it. And that's what I've honestly been doing like for the last decade, helping women with. So
Yeah. I mean, from the moment I met you, I you were leading a meditation. And as soon as we got up, I like popped one eye open. I was like, I need to fucking be friends with her.
and we've been friends since,
I,
literally.
I
You know
know.
what? That was 9 years ago because it was 2015.
Wow, that's so crazy.
Crazy.
I just felt that in my heart. It doesn't
But
feel like
also
that
we
long
spent
ago.
a million lifetimes together.
I
Sisters,
know.
daughters, all the things.
I know. I love talking about all of this with you. So a big part of your population that you work with are mamas, and I think that that is very inspiring. I'm not a mama yet, but I think what you've done, even having two babies back to back, like I'm inspired.
Thank you.
And you've helped your husband grow his business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
what made you want to work with entrepreneurs and not just entrepreneurs, but soul purpose driven entrepreneurs?
This has to take me to my earth classroom that I needed to witness and experience was that I helped other corporations and I learned great experience in these corporations and I needed them. I needed to see the patriarchal business side. And I helped these businesses make like millions of dollars. And I worked for some really cool brands and some really cool missions. I won't name them right now because I don't want to get into that, but I had really cool jobs and I went there and I went for these really high end, really hard jobs. Some of them had like 90% attrition rates, meaning like only 10% of the people who went through the trainings could actually hold on to the job after. Some like really intense New York City sales floor jobs and in Vegas and in Boston and all over. And I had to experience all that within all of these years, I also worked for small businesses from like 15 years onward. Small haircutting salons and restaurants. And I got to see the behind the scenes, and they always took me under their wing and mentored me and showed me their books and taught me about business and taught me about front of the house and back of the house at like 15 and 16. And then all through college, like I just went there. I'm a go-getter. I'm a generator. I've got a lot of fucking energy. So I needed things to match me. And I always had amazing teachers and mentors. And we all do. They're always all around us, right? And you can say yes, right? When you are ready, the teacher will appear. Can I just say I heard a second version of that? And when you are really ready, the teacher will disappear. Oh, isn't that so good?
I just got goosebumps because that's so true.
I almost cried when I first heard that. I don't know who said that. Like, I'm sorry, I can't quote it right now, but I heard the second version of that recently and I was like, wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I mean, I mean, we're both yoga teachers, and I think that you can even see it in your own students.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Okay. Let me go back to the story. So I had to do all this business stuff, small business, big business, right? And I can remember vividly the day. I'm also a storyteller, so lots of stories will come up. I remember vividly in the day sitting in my passenger seat. I don't know why I was in the passenger seat of my own car, having just gotten my lunch from Whole Foods, crying hysterically over my lunch outside of, where we work together. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. It's sucking the soul out of me.
Yes.
And this was a great brand and great people, and I learned great things, and I'm so thankful. Connected to you through this, like, amen.
Yes.
Oh, blessed be. I am so thankful. But my soul was ready for not even another next step or another level. It was ready to kick off a monumental path of me doing what I've done now. And looking back, that was the year 2014. I stepped out of that. So 10 years ago. It kicked off a 10-year path of me then meeting thousands of people around the world and helping them activate their Earth missions. Fuck yeah. So I had to have that crying, hysterical soul breaking out of my chest. I couldn't breathe. You know what I mean? I was gasping for fucking air. My soul was gasping for air. And I had to walk away from all that
And that's
stability.
also the human experience. Like, you can't positive vibes only your way out of that. Like, the only way out of that is
It's through it.
through to feel it, to like let it come up.
And yeah, so I just went, I actually, I remember I put in my resignation after dropped an atomic bomb on the store, LOL, where I highlighted manipulative behavior from the store manager at the time. Hopefully none of these people are listening, LOL. But I'm sure that kicked off their own path towards something else. But it was like there was a lot going on underneath the realm of the sugar-coatedness of the store. And I, as a truth speaker and a Scorpio rising sign, and amongst many other Scorpio situations in my life, I could not expose it. So I exposed a bunch of filth and then helped clean up. And then I released my space and I unclogged that pipeline and said, I'll move out of the way and let the next best person who really needs to be in this store come through and do the damn thing. And sure as shit, they did. You know what I mean? So I got myself out of the way, did the fucking scary thing, resigned. And it was really in that moment, I resigned from all corporations at that moment. I resigned from the man, I resigned from the patriarchy. I said, I'm fucking done. And I haven't looked back since.
And then, like, I think it's so cool that her husband's name is also Jayme. So, not for confusion's sake, but you and your husband, Jayme, got together and created this amazing community around where you live, around movement, around healing. And, like, I think that is one of the coolest things because you guys really both stepped into your divine masculine and divine feminine and used your strengths and weaknesses together to create this beautiful thing that's like still going almost a decade later and
Yes.
growing and like evolving and expanding. It's just like very cool to see.
We're about to hit 9 years in May. So next month. 9 years in business, 12 years together. And I found someone he's my eagle. I love the eagle analogy. Have you ever shared the eagle analogy on that?
No, but you have shared it with me.
Okay, we're gonna share it for your listeners. So I left, like many of us have left relationships where we, let's say, weren't going the same speed as the person in it. And even if we had the same vision or if we had a great time together and if there was chemistry, what I realized in life was I was sick of, I couldn't drag people around anymore. I couldn't be with people who I had to literally drag them to their next best version or towards the future or towards evolution. It was exhausting. It was weighing me down and definitely holding me back, but I'll take full responsibility for that and being in those relationships. So I really needed to find someone. And someone eventually shared with me this analogy about eagles and how they mate. Eagles have such a height difference on where they can fly. So they don't always fly at the same height, if that makes sense. They've got like a gap of altitude that they can fly in. But an eagle will not pair up with another eagle at a different altitude than them. If I'm saying that word right, I hope I'm saying the word right, but y'all
Yeah,
get where
altitude. Yeah.
okay. So an eagle, when it finds another eagle going out at its same height, going at the same speed, they will connect with each other, they spin inward towards each other, fly directly at each other, entangle and spiral downward towards the earth. And they consummate until they hit the ground, break apart, soar back up, find each other, and stay together for life. What the fuck? If that isn't the best vision and analogy for so many of us on the planet who know they are here for more in relationship, then I don't know what is. So I,
Yes.
again, a hard releasing of relationships and 5-year relationships that crushed me in my 20s. But I knew, again, my soul was calling me to something, and I had to find my eagle. And we, to this day, are still evolving, changing, growing. One of us will evolve, the other will catch up. Sometimes we'll evolve together. Sometimes we let each other have our growth in moments, but we always knit back together. We're always soaring and finding each other back together. It hasn't been easy. It's been so challenging. We run our own fucking businesses and now we have kids, but we will continue. Like I was just giggling with you before this. My husband's into yoga now. I've been doing yoga for fucking 12 years. We've been together. Now all of a sudden he's fucking doing yoga. So now he's doing yoga. So it reignited my yoga. Now we're talking about yoga every day. Now we're both doing yoga every day. It's like we are so alive. We are passionate, and we're going through a lot of work right now and a lot of healing and a lot of family issues and like, right? But
I feel like so many people can relate to that because it's like, it's looking at those triggers. Like, are we either gonna like shy away from it and no one's gonna grow and we're just gonna keep being the same and like we're gonna keep living in this like low vibrational energy, or are we gonna look at it and feel it, move through it, and evolve from it? Because I think a lot of the planet is trending that other way of like, we're gonna look at these uncomfortable things, we're gonna work to heal them. Like, so many people I know are just they're doing the difficult work to look at this stuff so that we can have better. And
right.
I know that sounds like it sounds very vague and surface level, but if we really get into it, we'll be here for like, it'll be a Joe Rogan podcast. We'll be here for like 3 hours.
I can always run with that. I can't, I want to be interviewed by him too. I would so be on his podcast. Are you kidding me? Let's put that into the universe.
I would definitely be on his podcast
Right.
too.
Oh, we should tag him to this.
I definitely will. So another thing that I want to talk about is the Tracking North Co. Like, how did it come to be? Like, it's evolved so much. I mean, it started with even like,
The
you were
Wild West.
saying about how the teacher disappears. It's like, even when you were teaching yoga, like, you kind of stepped into this new realm and you didn't call it yoga, but like, you still had the yoga teacher in you, but your teaching just evolved in a different way.
So yeah, in that 2012, I was part of the 2012 awakening. I know people that have had awakenings. We all kind of have this little like timeline
Cycles. Yeah.
that we feel like I had a huge awakening in the year X, Y, and Z. Like, you know what I mean? And then every year after, when there is a big, I like to explain it for the viewers, listeners right now. Like the way I experience the awakening is like almost like a ribbon of consciousness ripples around the planet and your soul will take the ride or not. So it's like a ribbon, like a, I hope that sound effect helps you with that. But like a,
We all envisioned it.
and it like ripples around the planet and people are like, yeah, I'm ready. And you get on the ride and you can feel others on the ride, right? So for 2012 for me, that was huge. Let's say these ribbons really kicked off in like the 60s. That's when like a big one came, right? And then we had a few, but now they're like 2012, 2014, 2016, 2018. Now it's almost like every other damn month.
I know.
Quickening is here, the awakening is here, and it's speeding up and getting faster and faster, right? Which is explaining the intensity as well, right? So I had a big awakening in 2012. Quit drinking, quit doing drugs, quit meat. I went vegetarian, left another corporate job I have, and signed up for yoga teacher training. And then literally again was like having panic attacks and realizing I was probably going to die. I needed to step away from the drugs and I needed to step away from that life that I was living, like 80 hours on a sales floor in New York City. And was like, I could die. Like if I keep doing this, like this is getting pretty dangerous. So I quit it all and became a yoga teacher. And and then got a dog walking job. That cash under the table was almost providing me same what I was making after all my cuts of the paycheck I was getting. Like the universe will legit, I am a walking example of the universe, and that staircase and pathway will show up when you commit to soul. Like when you commit to big badass shit, and it is scary, the path will reveal itself. Like in
What would
India.
your tip be for somebody who's like scared to start to step towards this purpose, but like knows that it's there? You know what I mean?
What would my tip be to them? Okay, let's use
Or just
Indiana.
like a golden nugget of information. Just like, what would you tell them?
I feel like do you know in Indiana Jones where he's in the what is he in? He's like in the
Okay, no, I live in a cave. You're gonna laugh when you hear this, but like, I've never seen any of the Indiana Jones
oh,
movies, Star Wars, like any of the big things. Like, no, I live under a rock.
so there's this one part when he's like going through this like series of what are they even series of challenges, physical challenges he needs to do to go get the grail, the cup that they find out like the holy grail is this cup, the cup that Jesus took the last sip at the last supper from, and it's like they think of this grail, really it's the womb space, but like the patriarchy doesn't want to accept that anyways. So he's in this like amazing cave doing all these adventures, right? And one of the things is that he needs to get across this gap. And it's a massive gap. He's not running. There's no vines. He's not jumping. He's not catapulting himself on it. He's got a small space. How is he getting across? And he looks down and it's a cavern. I mean, you are fall to the death going down this. And then he realizes it's got to be an illusion. Like there's got to be something here. So he takes a handful of sand and throws it across the cavern, this right big, deep thing. And the sand illuminates that there is a walking path. But it's an optical illusion. You can't see it until he puts something on it. And really, essentially, until he takes that first step and he's like, there is a path here. Okay. And then he starts to walk across it and gets across to the other side. So my tip to anyone would be, what is the soul spark? What is that soul sand that you could grab and gather up inside of you and toss out into the abyss right now and just see what lands? Right? And that to me is like, what's the hope inside of you? Where is that tiny, 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 maybe it's just not even a fucking flicker. It's just a soul spark where you go, there's something else here for me.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the conversation that we had in 2020, like right before Nearly Enlightened was even born.
Yeah.
And it's one of those layers of healing and stepping out onto the teacher podium or whatever you want to call it for you like 2020 was a dark time for a lot of people, but also for a huge chunk of people, it was it was that sand to be like, oh, there's a path here, and like this is actually going to be like you are here for
I think
this.
all the healers, spiritual, energetic people were like, here it is. Here it is. I remember screaming in 2020 when it was all kicking off, and people were, of course, going through the ringer of it. But I was like, oh, here we go, baby. This is it. Let's fucking go. This is what we've been preparing for. This is what we've energetically, and it has nothing to do with the C word. It had everything to do with the collective dark night of the soul we had all fucking called on because
Right.
we are here to heal the last 5,000 years of shit. And that sounds overwhelming. And that's too much for the brain to do. But when you realize we're here as bands of souls to do this together, it becomes a lot less scary, right? It
Yeah, and
becomes
it's like everyone's breaking off their little chunk.
right. And to the answer of that, like to the those of I mean, I think a lot of people have it like, oh my God, I'm here to help the world. And yeah, like I say that too. I talk about Earth Mission all the time. And you know, um, but I think over the years I've been really clear teaching people like it's who's in front of you that you're here to work with. You know what I mean? Like, and yes, I
Right.
feel
Your audience isn't going to be the whole 9 billion people that are on this planet.
right. Like it
But
is the
it's a ripple effect. It's like if you have an effect on one person, if you positively impact one person, then what's that one person going to go out and do? And then that one person and that one person.
woo.
Yeah, we put these like big, scary numbers on things. And for anyone listening, Jayme and I actually did a talk in her soul purpose container. And we talked about this last week about like taking manageable small steps. Like that's a huge win. Like we need to celebrate those things.
And this doesn't mean we can't have, like, I'm a speaker and a writer, very much so for the last 6 months about how this is what we're experiencing now with this polycrisis is this is the I'm calling it the largest heart awakening we have had on the planet ever.
Right. Cause like if we're all going to be honest, like the punches really haven't stopped coming since 2020.
Only
So
speeding up.
yeah.
And more things are kicking off, you know what I mean? So people are having their hearts
Yeah.
ripped.
Like global war, LOL.
Right. It's crazy. Like, so I've been explaining to people, like, people are like, how do we get out of this? How do we fix this? How do we, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you let your heart break open and then you heal it back together over and over. And you let your heart break open and fuck again. And sometimes it will happen 3 times in one day. And sometimes it will be, you're walking around with an open, broken heart. This is where we brew the medicine, not from a closed off, soulless one. You know what I mean? That's not the answer. That's not the medicine. Having your heart fucking ripped open day in and day out. This is where we can start to open up and create life here again. This is how we will create life again, right? This is like I've been teaching about this for years and it has not made sense to people, but it's starting to make sense now. Like we activating the Sacred Heart. You or I are both like raised Catholic and
Yeah.
we are covering Catholics, LOL, but we are still tied into that, the Sacred Heart. You know what I mean? This is also known as the High Heart.
Yes.
We
It's funny. A little aside. I've actually been reading the Bible like with new eyes.
interesting. Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny. I do think that in all of these sacred ancient texts, now I've read quite a few from quite different cultures and religions, non-religions, and Catholic. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school my whole life. So I have studied the Bible front to back to front. So reading it now, like I haven't read it since high school, but reading it back now with like these new eyes, it's like, holy shit. Like I talk about the Yoga Sutras a lot because I feel like that is like the guide manual to life. Like it's literally a guidebook to life of like, oh, you have anxiety. This is how you manage it. Like, oh, like name your ailment. Like this is how you manage. This is the first step in the path to healing, whatever. And I think that the Bible has a lot of those same parallels, and it's very interesting. Like there is a huge, doesn't matter what culture you read from, what religion, like prayer, meditation, it's the cornerstone of any kind of like easing living in this space of a spirit having a human experience. Like
Right.
it's the foundation of dealing with all of the human stuff that's not fun to deal with, because we're all going to experience loss. We're all going to experience grief. Like being a human on this planet, you're not going to escape that.
And none of our systems or schools and societies have actually prepared us.
Right. So now it's like, how are we building this forward? And I think that that is really your work.
Thank you.
You've
Uh,
ignited so many people to do like pretty much every single person, with the exception of like two people that have been on this podcast in the last 3 years, I've met through you. That's crazy, right?
literally, I've been laughing with so many of them too. They're like, "Oh, I was on Gianna's podcast. We were talking about you," or like whatever. And I'm like,
Yes, literally you've
"Yeah,
come up
one
on like
day."
every podcast. So if you have been listening since the inception of this podcast, you've heard about Jayme. Like, I mean, there's close to like 40 episodes floating out there. So yeah, you've probably been mentioned on probably like 35 of them.
I fuck that. Thank you. Okay, let me go back to also before continue the answer of the tracking north, because I definitely didn't answer that fully. But also,
That's okay.
I just saw today that Russell Brand was praying the rosary on his. He put up a reel of on his podcast praying the rosary, Gianna.
Wow.
You go look at the comments too, because
I
it's like
will.
free in those fucking comments. But it's wild to see, like, for someone that big.
Well, yeah, I've been saying it for a long time. A lot of people are going
I
to be
will
like
say,
picking sides and asking for forgiveness and praying that their soul gets saved. Like
yo,
I have since 2020, I've been saying, you better get right with God and get right with yourself, because if not, it's going to be a very uncomfortable ride.
also like all the memes of being like all the normies waking up and realizing how bad it's just getting, and then people like us like laughing like, we got a ways to go, sister friend. So buckle the fuck up, because it's about to get weird. And that's great, right? So it's like this is what we've been preparing for millennia. Thousands of years we've been preparing. And then what we said at the beginning of this call is, remember, your soul chose to come here for this. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're a badass. Your soul's a badass. You've chosen to come here. You've got great things to do. We're not here to just pay taxes and go to this and then die and sit in front of the tube.
No, and I think
All day
another big part of what you do is build community. You've done it on several
over and over and over.
different spheres, and I think finding your community is really important, especially if you don't feel like you're connected to one now.
Especially in the years coming up, community will be huge, tribe will be huge. And I use that word because I come from Celtic lineage, and people have, over time, historians have called us Celtic tribes because we are a fucking tribe, right? It wasn't that word in the dialects we were using in Gaelic, but yeah. The word tribe means a lot to me, and the community will be huge. The lone wolf shit is over. And don't get me wrong, I am a Capricorn and no one knows my address, and I love my home. And not many people get invited over here. Like I'm like a hermit, and that type, like I'm a druid, but I'm like almost a hobbit. You know what I mean? Like I could just live in a tower and read my books and just like write parchments and let owls take them away to the people for my whole life. But that's not really what my spirit needed to do this time. It needed to continuously gather and activate people on their paths, because the ripple effect of that is huge. Okay, so back to the tracking north, where that come from.
Yeah.
Yoga, and that healed me, and that got me in front of people, and it turned me into teacher, and I was so thankful of it. But my soul in the 2016 awakening, when a lot of people woke up that fall, my spirit was like, get off this path now. It is for others. And I will be able to use this tool and this practice my entire life. But this has moved on. You need to step in to more of a leadership role. And that's what kicked off the Wild Moon Society. And think back then, no one was talking about priestesses and lunar cycles. Like I was saying this shit in a time where people were like, Jayme, what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? Now look at what we talk about. Now there's sage bundles for sale at Claire's, which you don't even get me going. That's ridiculous. But look at the world. Look how
Right.
fast.
It's like trendy now
Look how
to be
fast.
spiritual.
Right. So I did that, and that really allowed me to step into leadership and step into my feminine abilities and my mysticism. and the energy practices and the magic and my witch and my priestess, you know what I mean? And lead a bunch of women. And that evolved into the New Earth Illuminator. So I had the Wild Moon Society for years. Remember, I ran my show every Wednesday for how many, two and a
Yeah,
half
I was on
years?
it.
Even when my mother was dying, I still
Yes.
kept that show going. You were the first person I talked to the week after my mom died on that show. You know what I mean?
Wow,
Well,
that's crazy. And it
and-
just goes to like nail home. Like I had an astrology reading recently and she was like, "Oh, so like don't get scared, but like the theme of your chart is just like death, grief, rebirth, transformation. But like death is a really big thing in your chart." And it's funny because other astrologers, like an astrologer, our friend Sam, who has also been on the podcast,
Ooh,
um, he was the first person to read my chart and he knew. He was like, "You had a sibling who passed away." I was like, "How do you know that?" And he was like, "Oh, see this placement here?"
ooh,
He was like, "That is like a big sibling death placement." And I was like, "Oh my God,
oh,
that is fucking wild." So I talked about it on my podcast last. Like, death work is what I'm here to do. So it like makes sense that I would be in that space with you at that time. And actually, I was dating a funeral director and he was actually there as
oh.
well.
You should actually make a list in a notebook, like a fresh page, and just write all the connections you have on that because it will be part of whatever book or blog or situation you've got coming out of you too. Like, what a great story, you know? And for you to like really move into death doula too, but also what that means for people and their path and their soul purpose as well. Like, you have to, like, that's perfect example of you saying this right now because I had to let all of these creations die. I had to let the Wild Moon Society go. I had to let the Many Moons talk show go. Then I had the New Earth Illuminators. That was when light, spectrum of light came to me. And it was so like light showed up. It wasn't a god, it wasn't a goddess. And I was doing all that work, like connecting to deities and da 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 da, right? And then light showed up and was like, "You work for the light. Let us activate. This is a heart activation. Let's fucking go." And that was in 2018. And I dropped all the other shit. And then I was just talking to the light, and then people were like, "Okay, this bitch is really crazy." But I started connecting with the light, and really what I was doing, I was connecting to the children of light. I was connecting with the souls of light that were coming. That's when my babies were coming, and the miscarriages started in 2017 and stuff for me. And I started. I'm a medium, so I was connecting
And
with the
again,
spirit.
going back to that theme of death, like,
Yes.
uh,
Yep.
I had somebody in my sphere who also lost their mother recently, and they said, "I just wish that no one ever had to know this pain. No one ever had to go through this." And it's like, well, none of us are getting out of it.
And we're all here to die.
Right.
We all
Right.
have.
It's a common theme that we don't want to look at, but
Yeah.
it happens in facets of our life. Like I was even telling you before we hit record that recently there was something in my teaching world that I didn't want it to go, but
Yeah. Yeah.
had to step away, well, whether it was my choice or not. Like there's always these little aspects that are dying, but we wouldn't have forward growth if that wasn't happening. And I think that's the breakdown that we're seeing globally right now.
1,000%. It's the micro of the macro. And of course, people don't. Of course, you don't want to let go. Of course, you don't want your babies in your belly to go. What
Right.
I experienced, right? You don't want relationships to go. You don't want good job opportunities to go. You don't want these creations, right? Because we consider it loss. But if we could review it differently, if we could, I mean, to me, this wasn't loss. This was building blocks on the path that I've created, right? That these building blocks have become so big, the path isn't just for me. I've got a wake of fucking people behind me. And I'm not saying I'm in front or I'm above. I'm not trying to be elitist like that. But I'm saying I'm a path creator. I'm a stone, you know what I mean? I'm down there with the stone and the grit and the sand and the mud and the muck. And I'm just putting myself out there and seeing what the fuck comes of it. You know what I mean? And really following my spirit. And it's led me in the right direction and in the wrong direction
Yeah.
at times, right? It's led me to places. So basically then the New Earth Illuminators came and went, that evolved. And then I landed into, like, when I started getting in the coaching world, I got certified coaching. Thank fucking God. That was through the Little Volcanoes. I'm just going to give them a little high five, energetic high five right now. I love them. They are my friends, but they run their own coaching program. And it's for the magicians, the weirdos, the misfits, the freaks, you know what I mean? Like the people who are the outcasts, I think that people are always hearing they're too much. Those the tribe of too much. And that is me. Clearly, the people who cannot handle my energy stopped listening about 3 minutes into this, right? LOL. So like, and I get that and I fucking own
That's okay.
that.
They probably wouldn't be here anyways because I am part of
Exactly.
that
You are.
too
You
much
are
camp.
1000%. That's why I'm
Too
like,
much, too loud, too outspoken, too opinionated.
yeah. Yeah. And I hope that people listening right now are like, yes, yes, yes. Like these are my people, right? Like the too much. And those people will fall away from you too, right? But not without you soul sparking them somehow. Because when we are too much and we are our authentic selves, it gives someone an invitation to do the same. And what happens is that they will be triggered. You know what I mean? That they can't fully, that they live in a life or a system or a box that they've been put in or put in themselves.
Bubble.
Bubble, right? That doesn't allow them to be the same. So let that just be an energetic permission slip for people. Right? Okay, so where was I? So then I got coached. They have an amazing coaching program. Let me know if you want to be part of it.
Yes,
And
provide me all your links and I'll put everything in the show notes. So if anyone has any questions, they'll be there. And
I'll give you
then,
my link tree, honestly, because it gives like the book for free. And if
oh, yeah, perfect.
I have a sale on something or how to work with me, yada yada, we'll talk about it after. But okay, so then after when I got the coaching certification, that's when I was really able to like loop in like another professional way to provide. And that was very helpful to how to take my like energetic, powerful, feminine, esoteric version of me and then match it up again with like a masculine, grounded way to provide for people. Does that make sense? Right. So then that kicked off. That really was like for me, the Tracking North Co. is my expression of saying, here, I'm here to help you track north. What is your tracking north? Because I've been in, almost 500 hours yoga certified and then coaching this and certification this and Akashic records and this. I have probably over 1,000 hours of just certifications and education. I'm a generator. I'm a forever student. I'm a forever teacher. I can't stop, won't stop.
I love that you say that because I think what's been coming up a lot for me is like having discernment around who you work with
Totally.
and about even what you're listening to, what you're letting into your energy field, what you're watching. Um, and like how do you develop that discernment muscle? Because sometimes not that you're deceived, but I mean, I know we can both relate. Like you work with somebody and then later find out like, oh, maybe their intentions weren't as pure as I
Great.
hoped they would be.
I would say
So
great. So just
yeah,
laugh, right? That's the learning, right? You got to jump in. You got to fucking jump in and realize this person's a complete fraud. You've got to jump in and realize, oh my God, this person's an angel in human form. You got to do it. And they all will help. I believe it all helps.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Because yeah. I mean, even the experiences that are unpleasant have led me on the path, and I think that is what I resonate with now because that's what I'm figuring out now. Like I was on this one path and you think it's the path and you think you know where it's going. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like you feel like you've been dragged along and like placed somewhere completely different without a map. And it's like, okay, now you find the way. And it's like when you're in that position, obviously it's hard to see where you're going or like where it's unfolding, but like that discomfort is where the growth is, where the magic happens.
And I think it's that helpful discernment bit too. Like sometimes you have to, as a teacher, you too, I know you've experienced this. Like you have to see how people do it for you to realize how you don't want to do it. You have to see what you like in people and see what inspires and ignites in you. You know what I mean? Like it was upon me taking my third of 100-hour yoga teacher. I had at that point I was like hitting 400 solid hours of certification behind all the other ones, and it was so good where I was like, I need to shit or get off the pot. I need to stop teaching yoga and go do what my soul's calling me to do over here, or I need to go back to school and get a degree in this. Make the decision. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with the teacher and the certification. They were amazing. But it was the boom, it was the spark I needed to be like, you're going left or you're going right. Decide. And how many people are just sitting there at
Waiting
that
to
point,
decide. Yeah.
you know? Okay, another thing I was gonna say about that was how many of us have to go around the world to come back home, is my analogy there.
Yeah, both of us have both done this.
Like you have to go around the world. Even like, let's say on a like Jayme, what's your spirituality? It's like, well, I'm a full on, I fully have been embodied as a druid for many, many moons now. But I had to go to Catholic school my whole life. And then I had to go through high school and study all these world religions and then get out of that and continue to study all these world religions and like you read all these religious texts and do these other systems and come back to like indigenous and first peoples of this first nations here and study all of this Native American to run right back home to Celtic spirituality and druidry. Fuck yeah, I'm home and I'll probably stay here for a very long time. you know
And it's realizing that it's so much the same. So going back to the rosary thing, it's like there's 108 beads on rosary beads. There's 108 beads on mala beads.
right
Oh,
right
there
right
are no coincidences. Like
and
we need
all
to stop fighting each other. We're all the same.
yeah, exactly.
There's this like influencer right now on like probably TikTok. I don't do the TikTok.
Me
I
neither.
sound like such a millennial.
Me neither.
But I found him on Instagram and he is Catholic as well, but he practiced Ramadan this year. And
Mm.
his videos around that were so inspiring and just like embracing a culture that's different and committing to this like really, I mean, you are fasting from sun up till sundown every single day, like for it's like 30 something days. That is a big commitment to make if that's not your culture. And
Yeah.
I was so inspired by that because that's the spark of like, okay, we're making progress here. Like if we work to understand each other, like we don't all have to practice Ramadan, but to have that
Love that.
respect of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just like a really cool thing to watch happen.
I constantly say, imagine if all the religions and spiritualities stopped fighting each other and we fought the real darkness on the planet.
Yeah.
How fucking cool would that be?
Like we're all worshiping God or creator, just like we're calling it something different. So,
Or they're worshiping a man's idea of God.
right. So we can use it to manipulate politics and global
Right.
policies
We're
and
not actually focusing on the light in them. Imagine if we all started to really see the light and use that to band against the darkness that is here and has
and
been.
so many of us are starting to step into our purpose here and
Yeah.
do this work.
Yeah. I feel like we could have 30 different episodes.
I know. And you know what? Now we're rounding out. Like, I think this is a good spot.
Want me to just finish the whole tracking north thing and
Yes, yes. Finish the whole tracking north thing. Tell us, and that'll be a perfect segue. You could tell us how people can work with you, your communities, and all of the things that you want to share.
Isn't it crazy how fast has an hour gone by? Like, isn't that insane?
Yeah,
Oof. Time isn't even real anymore, right?
I know. And with this whole eclipse, like April has been in a crazy month. Like I feel like we're at like warp speed. Like someone's pressing like the fast forward button. I feel like April just started, but it's actually right now when we're probably put it up today. So yeah, today's the 18th.
I'm actually
Uh
excited for us releasing the whole idea of calendar time. That's coming. I mean, that idea of like, why are we even trying to keep this on a quote unquote 24-hour thing? And why are we trying to keep it on a 7-day thing? And a 12-month, like, I mean, it's like actually this existence is too big to fill in this calendar anymore, and you can feel it.
yeah.
Side note, okay. So tracking north. So
Even
then
though, well, I'll do another side note. Even though, like, I see, I teeter on this line because as somebody who does show up and teach and like hold physical classes, like
we need it.
my class is Monday at 5:30. Like, I'm gonna be there at Monday at 5:30.
Right. It's like it needs to the constraints or the box that time is in right now needs its own update or something then. You know, like
Yes,
that.
I just read that. I just read an article. Like I still get a lot of like Phoenix, Arizona news, and a lot of the corporate companies there are moving to 4-day weeks. And I was like, I love this. I love this for us.
Yes. As dark and gloomy as it is out there, I think there's awesome stuff happening, right? Okay. So essentially that brings us up to now with the Tracking North Co, helping people find their true north. And this was another part for me. It was like I think so many people were looking for the secret. You know how like that book was big and people were looking for like what's the secret to successful biz? What's the secret to spirituality? What's the real truth? Everyone's looking for the truth, right? And it's like
The truth is, it takes work.
the truth that what it takes work, but also like for people to realize like you've got your own truth and you've got
Right.
your own true north. And there what works for her over there and him over here might absolutely not at all work for you. What is yours? What is your answer? What is your truth? What is your special piece? What's your medicine? You know, and giving that people that permission because I think so even you get into the business and you're like, great. Well, this expert's saying I have to do this on social media, and this expert's saying I have to do this on. It's like, oh, well, yeah, you could hear opinions and experiences from people, and the thing that helped them work for them is great. But we need to get clear. I love working with clients on like, what works for you? What's the special thing that we're going to get behind for you? What's this creation that wants to come out of you? What are you here to birth? What are you here to pull down? I have a whole section of my book where I say, you know, I help people go from this idea, this amazing idea with this consciousness, this seed, this consciousness of something that is willing and wanting to be born on the planet, is asking to work with someone and it has chosen you. This is the co-creation. This isn't like, oh, I've got a good idea. No, bitch, it's got its own consciousness to this creation. And you drop it in and you pull it down through the chakras and you feel it and you sense it, you drop it in right, and then you think about it, you think about it, you think about it, you manifest it. And then you start
This is
speaking.
like what we were talking about in regard to Nearly Enlightened at the top of this podcast. It's like I've watched it evolve and it's still evolving. And I'm still kind of like digging in to see because it's like, I keep saying this, I'll keep coming back to it. It's so much bigger than me. Like,
Yes.
I want to be able to not be a part of it at all. And it still flourishes and is this like incredible tool and resource. Because, like you said about yoga being one tool in the toolbox, like I feel that way too. I feel so much more than a yoga teacher because that's just one of the tools
Yeah.
in my toolbox.
Yeah.
It's the view in which I look at things. It's the like I view everything through yogic principle. I just gave a talk to your community about being an aligned entrepreneur through the lens of yogic principles. So
Right.
that's always like the lens that I look at things through, but it's constantly evolving.
Oof. So good. So yeah, current day, now I can look back and say, like, I've been really just focused on helping people with their soul purpose, their soul business, and passion projects. It's not just business, because a lot of people here just have like passion projects. And I also help Earth Guardians with their Earth missions.
Right. And it's very real, like that you might not be able to step away from a job that provides healthcare or like
Right.
whatever. Like it doesn't have to be this thing that you quit your job for and
Right.
like
Sometimes these can just be more aligned jobs. And that gives you the space and time to do that thing on the side. I mean, the amount of think guides, like the future is so freaking awesome. The community developments we have coming, the new earth technologies coming in, using our heart as like, this is the ascension tool. It's our heart. The breaking open that we're experiencing now is activating medicine globally. I think 1 billion breaking hearts are happening right now. That's what I've been saying. You know what I
so
mean?
it's very funny you say this because my friend Danica, who has also been on this podcast before and is actually one of the only people that is not connected through you, but feel like you should be friends.
Yeah.
She just did this whole master class on how the heart is actually the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, yo. Yes, exactly.
I should see if that's still available and send it over to you
Yeah.
because it's like all on the quantum physics of the heart and it'll blow your mind. She's actually we're like working on a schedule right now to have her back on the podcast to like talk
Yes.
about this.
Yes. Oh, I see, like, there's so many amazing things coming,
Yeah.
and can we hold space for both, right? The absolute death of this world, and it's not the earth. This bitch will keep on moving, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. She'll
It's
shake us
the
off like
monster
fleas,
that we've
like
created.
George Carlin says,
Right.
and we will
And
cease to exist. The earth ain't going nowhere.
nowhere. And it's the what we're seeing die is the construct, the matrix that we have created collectively together. And that's why it will be the full responsibility of all of us to witness this death, right? And to experience that and the grief on that, and then be here for the rebirth
To
of this.
step up to create those systems, to create a better place for all of us. This is like also what I was talking about in the podcast, the episode before this. It's like it's all of our responsibility to step up in some way, and whether or not that's just being a better friend.
Right, right. That's the thing. It's like so many people are looking for the answer. I'm like, there's a million answers. Like, right? If we're like, what are we talking here? Let's put it onto on ground terms. The education system, obviously, look at that. The whole rebirth coming. The healthcare system, massive rebirth coming. Like, it doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of X, Y, and Z's. No, but there's a
No.
massive, clearly a massive rebirth happening.
Right. And shifts need to happen.
Financial systems,
Yeah.
corporations, businesses, work. It's all transportation. It's all getting a makeover, whether you like it or not. Cool. Cool. Fuck yeah. I'm here for it. And if you're listening, if you're still listening, definitely here for it. So come find me.
Yeah.
So essentially I'll just put my link tree in there, and I have my own web.
Yes.
I know I don't need a link tree, but honestly, I've got so many creations and things moving. It's just easier. And you can see I have courses that you can take, and you can work with me as your coach and mentor. I have the Soul Purpose Collective. That's my baby right now. Like I've continuously had communities. That thing is so accessible right now. It's like $47 a freaking month. I'm live for coaching and mentorship on a strategy and soulful session every Friday, 3 Fridays a month. Every 3 weeks we take.
Yes, that container is like literally how Nearly Enlightened was born.
It's so
And
much
so
fun.
many other businesses and
Mhm.
people who literally have been on this podcast.
And just like celebrating myself also because it's like I'm not big. You'll look at if you go find my Instagram, I have like 800 followers on there. I've never given a rat's ass about those numbers and situations. I never try to be like someone that's like an influencer or a big Instagram thing. But I think it's cool to hear the numbers of the people all over the world who are making a difference. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to be an Instagram influencer with 1 million whatever people to think that you're making an impact. And are these people even making money? Truthfully, right? When you see that stuff, but so far since 2019, I was just doing the numbers. Not only have I helped, so there's like my events would help hundreds of people, and the programs and the teaching and the other things I would do. I had access to like hundreds of people and sometimes thousands on other people's platforms. But I just counted the other day, since coaching and mentoring on this soulful business level, I've had 80 paid clients, and they're all women. There's like a few men on that list. 80 paid clients. And that to me was just like, think like I have worked with that many people launching and starting their own thing. And that does not include any of my years of body work, my years of private yoga teaching, my years of Akashic record reading, star children reading, card readings, psychic readings. Like that's not any of those sessions or those clients. Just soul purpose driven people who feel they have something, who then paid me. I just hit 80 the other day. And I was like, fuck yeah. And you might hear that and go, that's nothing. Or you might hear that and you've only had like 5 paying clients and you're like, yeah, I can't wait to hit that mark. So I'm just putting it out there to be like, you don't have to be fucking all these famous people or influential people to be making impact on the planet.
Right. But you impacted those 80 people. Like, how many people have those 80 people impacted? Like, it's about having that ripple effect on the planet to create these new systems. Like, if you didn't work with those 80 people, like, there would be hundreds of people that didn't get some sort of like help, guidance, healing that they needed.
Exactly. And if you want to hear this, I go through A to Z on how to kick off, how to align with your own soul biz, what to do, all the way to a template to write a sales page and how to sell in my book called Launch Your Light. And that is align with your soul's purpose, connect to the spirit of your biz, and learn to share from the heart. That's the name and the title of that book. And right now it's
That's so powerful.
right? And it's amazing. It's a quick, fun ebook right now while it's behind the scenes getting ready to be self-published this year. Hopefully, we'll see. So if you're like, I want to work, I want this, go get that free thing now. It's awesome. You'll be on my email list and you'll hear from me often, regularly, whatever. So yeah, I think that's like a quick, easy way. I'll give you that link, but come find me. I am here to help. I am here to serve. And I mean that in the highest, holiest, most divine form of light ever.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so glad after 3 years, I finally got you on this podcast. I'm sure we will do another one. I'd love to do another one if people have questions that aren't directly answered by like working with you or like just general questions. Like I would love to have you back on that. And I mean, I talk to you almost every day, so I'm sure we'll figure that out. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week.
Thank you so much.